Hey, this is Coach T, and you have stumbled into my C# DevLog, which is a 52-week long video diary charting my growth from zero to hopefully proficient with C# over the course of a year. We're on week 15, like I said, and last week was a kind of keep on keeping on business week. We were traveling over the weekend, which made everything slower. I had a lot of business or job related responsibilities. So I didn't have a lot of time after school. I had a lot of late nights, and here we are. So that last week kind of infected this week. I was very busy. I had a lot of very late nights, and that's the way that it is, right? I'm not in a race to master C#. I'm on a journey to master C#. So I'm okay with having these slow weeks because what I did get to look at and learn about was interesting. I just didn't get to write a lot of code to practice implementing it. So a couple things that I did work on. I'm continuing to learn about generics, although I'll be upfront and say I still don't totally get when to use them, but I use the list generic type a lot. So I did practice writing some generic structures, but I didn't really focus on it this week. I read and then reread the chapter. I kind of marked it down as something that will make sense as I get more experience, and to just keep my eyes open for the angle brackets that mark out some sort of, angle bracket T. I'm working on the Fountain of Objects right now, which is the fourth dash there. That is the culminating project at the midpoint of R.B. Whitaker's Player's Handbook for C#, or whatever the title is. And I haven't found a place where I can use generics there that I feel comfortable using without breaking my model. But it's something that I'm looking at maybe integrating into my Dibbles work. Pardon the jump cut. My cat just invaded my office and had a complete conniption. So, I've been working on the Fountain of Objects, and I read the entirety of the assignment before I started writing out any code. And I thought, this would be a great place to apply my study of the strategy pattern. So upfront using classes and interfaces to really modularize the code so that things are easily swappable. And that's actually how I've structured it. I don't have it on this terminal though. It's something that I've worked on upstairs while the girls were up there. So I can't show you the code, but what I've got are 4 main classes. I've got the actual game itself, the Fountain game. I've got a player class that it tracks the player's state and then the X and Y values, which are used to place the player on a game board, which is a 2D array. I've already shown off a couple of those things that I've made, so I'm not going to show it off here. But it's a 4x4 grid, and it uses the strategy pattern to iterate the current room based on the player's X and Y. That way, it's only using the part of the code that it specifically needs at that point. And then I have a viewer class that the game class calls on to display what's going on the game board. So tracking the data on the game board is all within the game class. Tracking the player is all within the player class. And then displaying where the player and where the game are is all within the display class. And then for the different types of rooms that make up the array, there's a little inheritance hierarchy between an abstract room, or no, it's not an abstract room. It's just a room, and then that inherits to a hazard room, which is one of his expansion packs, his additional challenges, and then the fountain room and the entrance room. And I use an interface to flip between them so that the same methods are usable on every single room, and I don't have to duplicate my code. So it's pretty modular. I wrote it in Google Sheets at lunch because my laptop stopped fetching the NuGet packages, so it would not display the code. So I ended up writing it in Google Sheets, which was a mess. It took me a little while to debug it. But that process was pretty quick. And because I also studied exception handling this week with Christina's course, I finished the cookie app. I'm done with that. I have some fundamental issues with that exercise. I think there are some pedagogical mistakes that she made that really hold it back from being a valuable exercise. But that's probably for a different video. I moved into the next section, which is error handling. And error handling is something that I was actually working on in Python when I made the jump from Python to C#. So this, I think it might be the last thing that I had done in Python that I couldn't yet do in C#. I know I said that before, but I'm pretty sure this is the last thing. So I'm learning to do error handling, and I'm using a try catch in my Fountain of Objects game to handle what Whitaker wants for the hazard sense. I'm sure it could be done better, maybe the observer pattern, but I don't know how to implement that yet. I haven't practiced enough with it. So what's happening is every time that the player moves in the update loop of the game, it runs a check for hazards, and the pit room and the hazardous rooms that inherit from that class have a bool on there that says, well, all the rooms have a bool that says is hazardous, true or false. If when the check hazard runs, it picks up a false, nothing happens. But if it picks up a true, then it displays a hazard is nearby, which will eventually be customized to display a hazard message from the actual room itself. And that's all stuff that I just need to get through. Like I said, I was very busy this week, so I have it written but not implemented, if that makes sense. But because I'm on an array, I was running into immediately getting out of index boundaries, because let's say that you're in, it's a 4x4 array. So 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3. So 3 is the farthest you can get in the array. 3, 3 is the farthest to the bottom right that you can get. If you're on 0, 1, the way that I wrote the formula checks all the cardinal spots around it. So it would be looking for a -1 placement, which is out of bounds, and it was throwing an exception. That's where my try block handling came in. So now instead of crashing the program, it just reports, hey, hazard sense is detecting an out of bounds. It doesn't flag if you're in the core of the thing. It doesn't flag if you're not on an edge, but it does flag if you're near a hazard or the entrance or the Fountain of Objects itself, which is very cool. So it worked the way that I wanted it to work. It's probably not computationally useful because it's got to check all of the arrays around it. But you know what? I'm learning, and it was my idea, and it worked. So that's it. Yeah, I worked in the Fountain of Objects. I studied the strategy pattern through the O'Reilly book, implemented it as best that I could. I worked on exception handling. I think I spelled exception wrong there. I don't know. And I'm working on generics. That's the next thing in the R.B. Whitaker book are the generic. No, that's wrong. It's some more useful types, random and stuff like that. So I've already used random a lot. That might be a skim chapter for me. And then Christina's Udemy course, the Ultimate C# Masterclass for 2024, her exception handling unit is pretty long, and I've kind of been like plugging away at it slowly, like watching one video, doing a coding exercise, back and forth. But I just haven't had a lot of time because of the short week, the travel, and then all of the late night, like real work responsibilities that obviously they have to take priority. So, if when I come home, I just haven't had a lot of time to code. And I did goof around yesterday. Instead of coding, I took the day off and I worked on a Blender model. So that was just kind of a nice brain break to do something that was hands-on creative and not as cognitively intensive. I don't know if I'll ever use the model for anything, but it was nice to do. So that's my C# progress for the week. Generics, strategy pattern, really starting to handle exceptions without just making things nullable or not nullable. And then I'm almost done with the Fountain of Objects. And I built it forward thinking so that I'm going to be able to tackle 3 or 4 of the expansions like all at once, just using inheritance in the interfaces. The one I got to play around with is the board size one, but that's, I feel like kind of a critical one. So that's it. Thanks for watching my devlog. I'll be back on Saturday next week rather than Sunday. I was late the one day, so I decided an intermediary Sunday would make sense. Saturday for the next week. But I got to go. I got to go make spaghetti because the Bills are on in an hour EST. So go Bills, and I will catch you next week.